time I eat one of these, I have the exact same reaction, and that is just pure bliss. They are so, so good. I love marshmallows. Hello and welcome back to my channel, your sanctuary for all things home, health, and style. My name is Timberlyn Price. I'm a professional home organizer, and in my free time, I love to create content around just the things that I do in my normal day-to-day life, whether it be organizing for myself, putting in some work in my garden, cooking something, hanging out with my cats, or whatever it is I feel like doing that day. In today's video, I'm super excited to share with you guys my marshmallow recipe. I always have loved marshmallows growing up, and it never really occurred to me how they were actually made. And as I've kind of been along my non-toxic journey, getting rid of all the different toxins in my home, whether it be makeup products, clothing, cleaning products, or the ingredients in the food that I eat and put into my body, I was really shocked to see the ingredients that are in a lot of the store-bought marshmallows. It's a lot of corn syrup, a lot of gums and fillers, and I feel like I'm always talking about those because they are seriously in everything and it's completely unnecessary. So I set out to find a recipe for marshmallows that I could make myself using whole, natural, delicious, nourishing ingredients, and I think I finally perfected my recipe, so I'm sharing it here with you today. The final product will be a beautiful, delicious, light, airy, oh my gosh, that looks so good, light, airy marshmallow, and I think that you guys will all enjoy it. It's a very easy recipe, simple process, and it only takes about 15 minutes of active cooking time. The first thing that you're gonna wanna do is get 1 cup of water. And you're gonna take half of this cup, put half of it into your stand mixer bowl and half of it into a pot on the stove. So as you can see, we're starting with 1 cup here, and we're gonna just pour it in until we're left over with half a cup. There we go. Now we'll take this over to our pot on the stove and we'll put the rest in there. Then we're gonna take some honey, and we're gonna go up to 3/4 cups of honey, turning our stove onto medium heat, and we're just gonna go ahead and dump that all in. While that's heating up, we'll take 3 tablespoons of gelatin powder. This one I just got off of Amazon. It's just 100% natural beef gelatin, no additives or anything like that. And you're just gonna let that soak in for about 10 minutes. I personally like to put the timer on for 10 minutes. That way I just have a way to keep track of the time. This honey mixture, honey and water, you're gonna want to boil until it reaches about 240 degrees. If you have a candy thermometer, then you can certainly use that. I don't have one, and I don't really want to store one in my kitchen, so I just use a good plain old meat thermometer. It goes up to 220, but what I do is just kind of let it rise to 220, and then I'll just cook it for about a minute longer. And as long as I get kind of close, I mean, I haven't had any issues yet, so I think it's fine. While we're waiting for those to finish up, let's take some arrowroot flour, and we're just gonna create a light dusting. I prefer using this tea infuser that looks like a magic wand because it feels cute when I sprinkle fairy dust on things. This is going to be that kind of powdery coating on the outside of the marshmallows, so that way they don't get all stuck together. And it doesn't have to be a super thick coating. That'll do just fine. As you can see, our honey water is starting to heat up, so I'm just going to give it a little bit of a stir. In a few minutes, you'll see it start to bubble up and get all crazy, and that's what we want. While that's heating up, let's go ahead and check on our beef gelatin. Nothing really too exciting going on in here. I think I will just go ahead and kind of help this along a little bit because I didn't sprinkle it in there very well since I was filming. I'm never super precise when it comes to cooking. I just kind of use my intuition, measure with love, and my stuff turns out okay. Next, I like to add in usually I just use a regular spoon, but for the sake of this video, let's say 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. Actually, that looks like way too much. Let's use about half of that. There we go. Okay, so an 1/8 tablespoon of vanilla. And we'll do the same probably of marshmallow root powder. You don't have to use this, but you might as well because it's marshmallows, right? Yeah, that looks like a good amount of both of those. Now we just wait. Usually it's about 15 minutes on medium heat for it to get up to temperature. And I'll turn it up a little bit. Just for fun, even though we're not near the temperature it needs to be, let's measure just so you can see what it looks like at different phases of temperature. So that's about 210 degrees. So just kind of a nice even boil along the surface. Once it starts getting up to 220 and 240, it will start to froth in the bowl. And last time, there's our 10 minutes. Last time I made these, it boiled over. So once it starts getting kind of like this and even more, you're gonna wanna be here to stir it and make sure that it doesn't boil over. That might mean kind of adjusting your temperature a little bit here and there, just to hit that sweet spot. Usually when I stir it, it does kind of make the bubbles go away. And I would like to note that I have an electric stove, which I wish that I had a gas range, but we're renting and we make do with what we have. But this does, I feel like, kind of change the way that you're cooking, whether you're on gas or electric, because as you can see, my stovetop keeps turning red and then turning off, keeps turning red and keeps turning off. So maybe if you have a gas stove, that provides some more consistent temperature, this would be a faster process for you. By the way, how cute is this little tiny pot that I thrifted? I love it. Oh goodness. See, we're getting kind of towards the top now. So I'm just gonna move it off of the heat. And honestly, now would be a good time to check the temperature of it, because usually when it starts getting to the top like that, it's a good sign to me on my stove that we're getting up there as far as temperature goes. Okay, and once your honey water has reached the correct temperature, you're just gonna pour it in slowly and wait till it's all in. There we go. And you'll lift up your mixer and turn it on slow. As that bloomed gelatin heats up, it will melt and incorporate into the hot honey water. And I usually like to do it at this speed for a little while until it cools off slightly and firms up a bit. And eventually we will end up turning this all the way up to max speed and letting it whip. And you will be amazed at what you see happen. I know I was. Right about now, I like to set a timer for 15 minutes because I've found that that's kind of the sweet spot with my technique of mixing to get it to its perfect fluffy consistency. Now that those gelatin chunks are melted in, we can start turning it up a little bit higher. I turned it off so that way you wouldn't have to listen to it in the background, but what I look for is I look on the sides to see if there's any splatter, and if there's a lot of splatter, then I will turn it back down. But if there's no splatter, I try to turn it up as high as I can. As you can see, there's some good bubbles forming. That is exactly what you want to see at this point. So now we're up at full speed, and we're going to just keep letting it whip like this until we reach our desired consistency. Right now we're about 5 minutes into whipping our honey water mixture, and as you can see, it's starting to turn white, which is super interesting and cool if you ask me. As it continues to whip and incorporate more air and start to cool off, it's going to increase in size. So we have 7 minutes left on the timer, and I just wanted to give you guys a little sneak peek. This is exactly what you want to be seeing at this point. And yeah, you can even try a little now, but it's not quite ready yet. You can kind of tell as it's mixing, it's not sticking to the sides yet. That's kind of what you want to see, and that will tell you that we're getting closer to being done. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot to add this in. Okay, do that now, I guess. Usually I do this when it's still a little bit brown. I would really recommend that you guys keep tasting it too, because as you taste it, it really helps you examine the texture. And earlier when I was tasting it, when we were just a few minutes into mixing, it was definitely like very light and airy and fluffy. Now it's still very light, airy, and fluffy, but the texture is like the air bubbles are packed tighter together. Okay, it's just about done, but notice how it's like pulling from the edges, and it's kind of stringy a little bit, and it just looks really sticky. That's what we want. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now you want to move sort of quickly because it will set fairly fast, but just go ahead and grab one of these. I don't know what the real name, my dad always called it a spoonchilla. It's kind of like a spoon, kind of like a spatula. Not sure if that's what they're called or if that's made up, but here we are. And just go ahead and scoop it all right into your dish, making sure to pack your edges and flatten it down into a nice thick layer. And it is very sticky, which is exactly what we want. I like to get it down nice and even along the bottom and flatten it out a bit, and then I'll come back in and scrape up any leftovers. But I kind of have found that the bottom layer is the most difficult because it doesn't want to stick to the bottom because we put that arrowroot flour down. Yeah, that is so pretty. I don't want to mess up my beautiful top that I made to this, but sometimes I'll just either put that in the sink because it's really not a lot of ingredients that you're wasting in this little bit. Remember, we only used 1 cup of water and 3/4 cup of honey, but sometimes I'll just do a little plop right there as a little bonus marshmallow. This would seem like it would be really hard to clean up, but if you just fill it up with hot or cold water even and let it sit for about 5 minutes, look, it just comes right off. Alrighty, now we have our marshmallows. They're all in their tray and ready to sit for 4 to 6 hours. And then when they're done, we're going to take the arrowroot powder and do another light dusting, and I will show you the final product then. Alrighty, so it's been quite a few hours and now I'm going to get these cut up and put into this jar to store them. First, what I like to do is just do a really light coating of coconut oil on my knife so that way the marshmallows don't stick. It's not really necessary, but it helps get you a nice smooth line and just a little bit of a prettier presentation on your marshmallows when they're out of the tray. I've always thought too it would be really fun and cute, especially if you have kids, to get little cookie cutters and make shapes out of these. I just don't really care to do that. So I just do little squares, little rectangles, and I've even done a smaller Pyrex and made thicker marshmallows, and it works just the same. I don't think it really matters what container you put it in. As long as you mix it to the right consistency before putting it in your tray, you'll get a really nice marshmallow. Now what I'm doing is just picking up some of the extra arrowroot flour from the bottom and top of the marshmallows and just dunking it on the sides so that way, again, they don't stick to each other. Look at that texture. Oh my gosh, this was one of my best batches yet. This is such an easy recipe and it just gets better and better each time. And quite honestly, these marshmallows never last more than probably a week in our house. So you can keep them in an airtight container for at least that amount of time. Probably more too, but I don't know because I have not been able to experience that quite yet. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed watching this process. I hope that you learned something. And if you try these marshmallows, please, please, please let me know how they turn out. I also have been really wanting to try a matcha version of them, which I'm gonna do all the same ingredients, but then add a little bit of matcha powder. So if anybody wants to try that out, let me know how that goes. Well, I'm not sure if you were able to hear this little guy. This is Baby. He is our new kitten. It's kind of a long story, so I'm not going to get into it, but you'll probably see it on a video coming out, our story and our journey with this little guy. He will not stop meowing and he obviously is very squirmy. It's time to feed him, so I'm gonna just skip the outro. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next video.
Remember the lazy river days.